and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and these are the top diabetes stories and headlines happening now. In the News is brought to you by VIVI Cap, confidence on the go that keeps your insulin protected in hot or cold. Our top story this week, Dexcom announces the G7 will be available in the U.S. on February 17th. Not a lot of detail on this. An email went out to some Dexcom users announcing the date it would be available. Dexcom has previously told me that insurance coverage will be gradual once the product starts rolling out, and the G7 will not be compatible with Tandem or Omnipod systems until at least the third quarter of this year. Learning a bit more about the Tidepool Loop pump partnership, at least who it won't be, when Tidepool Loop approval was announced last month, it came without the original pump partners, Omnipod and Medtronic. CEO Howard Look says they do have a pump partner, but they are not ready to announce that yet. I spoke to Tandem for next week's episode, and they say it's not them. Quote, "That's not part of our roadmap. It's not an integration we're working on." There are, of course, many more pump manufacturers around the world, but there is no other ACE pump approved. That's what you'd need to be part of Tandem Loop in the United States, other than Omnipod, Medtronic, or Tandem. Insulet announces it's going to discontinue the original Omnipod system. In a letter to healthcare professionals, the company says the system, referred to as Eros or Omnipod Classic, will be discontinued at the end of this year. It is no longer available to new patients, and existing customers will be transitioned to Dash or Omnipod 5. I will link up the letter that went out in the show notes. Civica RX continues to move ahead with its effort to manufacture and distribute more affordable insulin. They've announced Ipsomed will make and supply their pens. Civica plans to produce 3 insulin biosimilars priced at no more than $30 per vial and no more than $55 for a box of 5 pen cartridges. Contingent on FDA approval, Civica anticipates its insulins will be available for purchase beginning as soon as 2024. A new study shows screening kids at risk for type 1 diabetes only once at age 10 is very effective in detecting the condition by age 18. These researchers say almost no one who is islet autoantibody negative at age 10 years, despite a high family risk for type 1, will develop it by age 18. The full study published in The Lancet. Strong charge against CBS's 60 Minutes show. The advocacy group Physicians Committee says a promotion for Novo Nordisk's obesity drug Wegovy was, quote, dressed up as a news segment. The group has filed a complaint with federal officials saying that 60 Minutes on CBS breached the FDA's fair balance rules for drug ads. Among other things, they say only experts paid by Novo were used in the program and that the piece used overly promotional language. A spokesperson for Novo Nordisk says they didn't provide any payment or sponsorship to CBS and didn't control any of the content. If you're familiar with the Faustman study of the old tuberculosis vaccine, it's taken another twist. Some researchers have pulled out of that trial, investigating the use of a tuberculosis vaccine to treat kids with type 1 only months after they began enrolling participants. The thinking here is that the BCG vaccine, first administered in 1921, may protect against some conditions, including COVID-19, because of its broad effects on the immune system. The abrupt withdrawal of this group from NYU could potentially jeopardize the study's viability if they're unable to collect data on the children at that site. Other studies of BCG using different versions of the vaccine and following people with type 1 have yielded mixed results. The lead investigator of the trial, Dr. Denise Faustman, says that NYU's withdrawal is a serious deviation from protocol that may call into question the final results. A new smart insulin pen sensor can also be used to track dosing of GLP-1 medications. Brand names for that include Trulicity and Ozempic. The device, called Malia, attaches to the injector and connects it to a mobile app. It's already cleared in Europe and should be available in the U.S. in the next few months. It's compatible with the most popular insulin pens, the Quick Pen, the Solo Star, and the Flex Pen. If you use different pens for, say, basal or bolus insulin, the app can connect multiple devices. Right back to the news in just a minute, but first, I want to tell you about VIVI Cap. This is a great product from TempraMed. It's a thermal insulin pen carrying case, and it keeps your insulin at the right temperature, even when it is very hot or very cold outside. It works with any insulin pen, and it is interchangeable between pens. We've used this for at least 2 years now. They did send me a sample. They sent me one for free when Benny went to Israel, and it was just fantastic. It kept his insulin pens just where they needed to be because he was hiking in the desert, and, I'm sure his pens were not packed beautifully, but he was smooshed in his bags like usual. And, it got hot in that backpack. It was more than 100 degrees in the desert where he was for a couple of days. I really like VIVI Cap. It gives me a lot of confidence that the insulin is safe. It lasts for years, and you don't have to do anything to it once you set it up. I mean, that's it. 24/7, 365. You don't even have to think about it. They always have great discounts on their website. Please go to diabetes-connections.com or check the show notes wherever you're listening. If you click through the link that I can give you, you will always make sure to get their sale price. They have an extra 20% off right now when you buy 2 or more units, that kind of thing. And you get a free protective cap with every order for extra protection. By the way, it is also FSA and HSA eligible with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Back to the news now, and new features popped up this week in the latest version of The Sims. After an update, players can opt for their characters to wear a CGM, Libre, or Dexcom. This looks like it was part of an upgrade or an update to the Sims game with a lot more features, including The Sims with many medical devices. Listeners have told me they have not yet seen an insulin pump, but please let me know if you do, and I will send it along. And finally, the Jonas Brothers officially have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Of course, Nick Jonas has type 1 diabetes. No mention of that here, but their star was dedicated in the category of recording, and they had a big ceremony on Hollywood Boulevard. Nick Jonas is set to produce and star in an upcoming film called Foreign Relations, and the Jonas Brothers say they are going to go on tour again for a new album, which will be released in May. No news from Dexcom if they have another Super Bowl ad coming up featuring Nick. On the podcast next week, I mentioned this, we are talking to Tandem. Last year, they announced a big roadmap for the future. We're going to check in. There are some changes already because they have acquired 2 companies. One makes a patch pump and one makes infusion sets. So we do a deep dive into what's coming up for Tandem. And of course, this week's long format episode is with Tidepool's Howard Look, talking all about the FDA approval for Tidepool Loop, how it will work, what it will look like, what happens next, and what happened to their pump partners. A bit of unfortunate news there, but one that Howard was, as usual, quite open in talking about. And that is it for In the News this week. If you like it, please share it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here soon.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.